Hey everybody, welcome to Grimm's Forge Gaming. Today I'm going to be giving you 3 different builds for our Hulk Smash. This is a Stamina DK and we are an Orc on this. And a couple things about this before we jump into it. I will have in the descriptions a timestamp that you can jump to each of the builds. However, I do recommend that you stick around for the armor sets and then stick around for the CP and what the stats are going to look like and the tooltips. Anyways, the different builds that we're going to offer today, we have a 7k weapon damage build, and then we've got a middle of the road build that features proc sets. And our tankiness goes up with that setup, and then we have a very high health recovery and tanky type build that will still feature 4k weapon damage. And so those are the 3 different builds for the Hulk Smash: 7k weapon damage, a proc set setup, and then also a health recovery setup with 4k weapon damage. So let's jump right into it. One last thing, actually, you don't need to post in the comments why would you do this or why would you do that. Most of the decisions that I make on my builds are more from a thematic standpoint, so we're just trying to hold true to the theme of the build and the character. So a lot of the decisions are not something that is in line with a meta decision, and so play the game you want. If you do not like an ability that's on the bar, put whatever abilities you want to run on the bar. You know, it's that simple. But so I do find myself playing hard mode some of the times, playing more to the theme and less to the meta. And so for you guys, knowing the line and walking the line are 2 separate things. And so change the abilities to suit your needs. Here's the first build. Let's jump right into it. This is the 7k weapon damage build. And the armor sets that we're looking at is Clever Alchemist, and we're running 2 heavy, 5 medium on this. And the Clever Alchemist that we have are the heavy pieces are going to be the heavy on the chest and legs. And then I have 1 jewelry piece, and you can see that that Clever Alchemist jewelry piece is infused with weapon damage. And then you can see we've got Clever Alchemist on the back bar. So when we are on our back bar, our sword and board bar, that's where we will proc our Clever Alchemist. And for us, when we're down in Imperial City or in Battlegrounds, we cruise around. We travel around in the battleground or in the sewers on our sword and board bar, so we're at our most defensive. And if someone were to get the jump on us, we immediately hit a potion to trigger Clever Alchemist and go to our front bar and start going to work. So we're running Clever Alchemist on it. The second set that we are running is New Moon on this, and New Moon's going to give us that weapon damage. Pen. The crit doesn't really matter because we are running Malakath on this. We'll explain that in a little bit, but the penetration and the weapon damage are really nice. I do need to gold these out, and we will probably do that. We'll get a little bit of a stat bump, a little bit more weapon damage and everything else, but you can also see that some of the items are prismatic enchants with the tri-stat glyphs, and some are just stamina enchant. I honestly would probably just run prismatic enchants on every single piece. That way you're pushing your max mag and your max health higher. The health on this is a little bit lower than I'm used to on this particular build. And then the other thing about this build is that the resistances, because I'm an Orc, I'm normally used to being a Nord, and you get an extra 4k resistances just for being a Nord. But for the Hulk, we ran a Orc, and so our resistances are a little bit lower. Now, I can tell you this, with the weapon damage as high as it is, our tooltips look really nice, and our vigor ticks are nice as well. So that's pretty good. What I'm going to do here is we're going to pull up a screenshot of the stats on this build and what it looks like. Excuse me, what it looks like buffed, and then we're going to pull up a smaller screenshots of the tooltip, so you can see what the current abilities look like, their tooltips and stuff like that. We'll also jump into those a little bit and talk about it. So we are running a front bar back bar setup featuring two 5-piece sets. Okay, so the first 5-piece set is Clever Alchemist on our back bar, and then New Moon on our front bar. However, on our front bar we also have agility set up. So we have a necklace, infused weapon damage, and then we have the two-hander. And so the way this works is, while we were on our back bar, you can see when we go to our back bar, Clever Alchemist is fully working, and we've lost the 2-piece and 3-piece of our agility. No big deal. We activate Clever Alchemist and we get that huge bump in weapon damage and spell damage. There's a point for that, but we get that huge bump in weapon and spell damage, and then we jump back to our front bar and it's going to give us a lot of damage. A couple things on this is, if you saw my Hulk Smash low level BGs kind of teaser as we're doing this, we're running some abilities that do flame damage, or magicka abilities if you want to call them that. And so these two sets, New Moon and Clever Alchemist, feed into the damage on those, and so I'm able to run those same abilities still, and it scales nicely, so I like that a lot. Anyways, at this point you will have already seen the buff stats. You'll see 7k weapon damage, and you'll see the tooltips for the abilities we're running. Let's talk about the abilities here real quick. Number one, we're running Stone Giant on this for a couple reasons. This is unbuffed right now. You saw that it'll get up to 13, 14k tooltip on it, and so it hits just as hard as a D-swing. It is instant as well, and it's AoE. So if I have 2 or 3 things around me, creatures, players, whatever it is, it's going to hit all of them for that amount. Okay, and so that's pretty important to know on activation. Okay, so when you activate it, if you've never seen this ability before, Hulk stomps his foot on the ground, and now he has these 3 orbs flying around him. Okay, that foot stomp on the ground is the AoE that hits everyone around you for that ability. Okay, for that damage. And then those orbs that are floating around you are single target items, or single target attacks that you can throw at a target, and they're instant cast. So I really like that. Well, it says cast time of 0.6, so the duration that it takes for him to stomp on the ground is 0.6 seconds, but it's way quicker than a D-swing. Also, because performance is where it's at right now with the game, D-swing's getting hung up a lot. It's very unreliable, for me anyways. Some people have not had any problems at all, and that's the very strange thing. And then I have video footage of my just D-swing just getting hung up, and then there's other times where I'm hitting D-swing and it's hung up, and I'm hitting it like, let's go, and then 3 of them fire off in a millisecond, just boom, boom, boom. Now that's pretty cool. That's a lot of damage, my guy. That's a lot of damage going out very quickly. But that's if you're not dead already, because you're fighting somebody and you need the D-swings to go off when you need them to go off initially, not all within a millisecond. So I have video footage of this. I've reported it, and hopefully the changes or performance upgrades that they got coming around the corner will fix that. But the thing I've noticed about Stone Giant is I don't have any of that problem. I activate the button, activate the ability right at the beginning, and they could be behind me, to the side of me. If they're in the range of this, they get hit by the activation. So I don't even, if it's a hitbox thing or if it's a targeting issue, I have no clue what's going on with D-swing. It doesn't affect this, so it's worth playing around. It feels very different. I can tell you the D-swing light or medium attack weave, when it works properly, feels a little bit more fluid than this. Okay, but from a Hulk Smash thematic and from a performance scheme right now, this is actually working better than D-swing for me. Anyways, you hit the AoE, hits everybody around you, and then you can single target, just throw a rock, and you just hit them for 3 D-swings in 0.6 seconds between each one. Just bang, 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 bang. So that's pretty nice. I like that a lot. Pairing this with Malakath is pretty nice. It's a whole lot of damage going out. Pairing this with Pale Order is very interesting too, because the AoE foot stomp at the beginning, you will hit the max health recovery or health brought in. You'll hit that for every single target hit, and so just your primary spammable when you're running Pale Order ends up being a huge heal for you. And there's a lot of people that are hating on Pale Order and say it's not worth anything for PvP. I disagree. Anyways, I'm running Reverse Slice because Hulk basically is like a bull in a China store, right? It's a lot of AoE damage, and he does have some single target damage and very high weapon damage. Like, that was the theme for this first build. So we're running Reverse Slice for that splash damage. And then right now I'm working with Draw Essence, and I think I was running the other morph for the low level BGs because I just started leveling this. However, the tooltip on it, if you guys seen that, the tooltip on it, the explosion at the bottom will basically be a roughly 5k to 6k going out in damage. And so if it's at 5k, that's going to be 2500 damage that hits an enemy player character, okay? And the top ability will scale up to 2000, a little bit over 2000, so it's going to hit them for 1000 damage, okay? So it's a 3500 damage total between the initial hit hitting them and then the explosion. So 3500 AoE explosion damage going out, plus the AoE explosion damage of this, which will be anywhere from 7 to 8k, we'll say, on an enemy player. So at that point we've got like a 12 or 13k. You time this, hit your stomp, and then you start laying into the single target attacks on them with the heavy attacks. And anyways, that damage lines up very good. And if you want to see how that damage lines up, watch the low level Hulk Smash BG footage, and you can see how I use the explosion timed with the stomp, timed with everything, and it's just a lot of damage going out. We are running Molten Armaments, and this is going to increase the damage with your heavy attacks by 50%. The nice thing about this is your heavy attacks thump on this build. You're using Malakath's Band as well, and 7k weapon damage just channeling a heavy attack will really, really thump people. So in the times where you need stamina back, you don't need to be firing abilities off. Just heavy attack somebody and watch it do work. And then we're running Hardened Armor. This is our armor buff. Does return a little bit of magic damage as they do damage to us. Gives me a little baby damage shield to kind of protect some of the heals that I have coming in. And then I like running Ferocious Leap. The tooltip on this, if you saw that, gets a whole lot better than this at the 7k mark. But anyways, Ferocious Leap, the reason I like this, especially for BGs, if I could count the times that I was fighting somebody in a BG and they were running Take Flight. Take Flight has the better tooltip in BGs, not by much, but it does when you, because it's no CP. But Take Flight has the better tooltip, but the damage shield on Ferocious Leap will keep you alive. And so if I had $1 for every time somebody tried to Take Flight, DK dunk me, and they get killed anyways because they didn't have a shield covering their life, and I just finish them off. And so for me, in outnumbered situations and BGs, Ferocious Leap is the play. And so I'm not the type of person to turtle either. I don't like that play style. I'd like to be on the offensive more than I am on the defensive. I really do believe that offense is your best defense. And if you find yourself on your back bar having to heal more and not turn the corner in the fight, it's just a long, painful death usually. So anyways, Ferocious Leap is the play for me. Jumping on the back bar. So DKs do have access to one of probably the best CC in the game, and that is going to be Fossilize. However, the problem with Fossilize is, usually for DKs in general, is the amount of magicka required for the class, because your armor buff requires it, your fragmented shield requires it, and then if you're running Cauterize or whatever other abilities, Molten Armaments, you have a lot of magicka. Even though I'm a stamina class, a lot of magicka expenses. And so I just needed to dump Fossilize, as heartbreaking as it was, and we had to go with a more reliable CC. So we went with shielded shield charge, and then we're going to go with shielded assault. And I recently made this change when I come to the realization I'm not going to be able to juggle all these things at once. And so this playstyle also suits me. I'm used to having my guaranteed hard CC on my back bar, on my sword and board bar, and while I'm cruising around on my sword and board bar, if someone jumps me or I want to initiate, I jump them, CCing them, hit my pot or hit my potions to trigger Clever Alchemist. Make sure we get Noxious Breath on them, which is going to apply Major Breach. It's got a good upfront damage and damage over time. And you should have seen, this is unbuffed, but the 7k weapon damage version of this, tooltips on this are very nice. And then Venomous Claw, which we're still leveling. It was a new addition to the build for more pressure. And I was just recently in a dueling tournament, and I already knew it to be true, but I don't play around with DKs a whole lot. That's actually the reason I wanted to make Hulk Smash and to basically get better at the class. And anyways, the amount of pressure just these two abilities paired with Malekith's Band is ridiculous. If they don't have a way to cleanse, or a cost-effective way to cleanse these things, this will eat their face. And so for me, opening on people on my Clever Alchemist bar made a whole lot of sense. And I still might switch these two to the front bar or something like that, I don't know, but these are staple for that. Gap close to them, CC them, hit them with both these things, switch to our front bar, go to work. That's going to be the play. But anyways, the Venomous Claw has good upfront damage, really dangerous damage over time. And you can see there the poison seeps into the target and deals increased damage the longer it lasts, dealing, and this will work up to like 20 or 25% more damage every 2 seconds, 20% more damage every 2 seconds. And so this one gets very dangerous. We are running Fragmented Shield. This gives us our access to Major Mending, and then we've got our Resolving Vigor. And when we're fully buffed up, our Resolving Vigor has a huge tooltip, and hopefully I shared that screenshot for you so you guys see what that tooltip is. And then we're running Corrosive Armor, and if somebody really jumps on us hard and gets a jump on us, and I have this up, I might hit this and then hit all of our defensive stuff, hit our potion, and then gap close to them and get our dots on them, then switch to our front bar and start going to work. The nice thing about Corrosive Armor is while active, this ability and your direct damage dealt ignores enemy physical resistances. So it doesn't matter what level, how much physical resistances they have. Their cap resistances, it doesn't matter. The initial upfront damage from Noxious Breath, the initial upfront damage from Venomous Claw, the initial shield charge that stuns them, everything will be true damage to them. Then we switch to our front bar and we start laying down, the really heavy hits. It's going to be a lot of damage for them, and so that's if we can save up that 209 ultimate. That's how we'll do that. So that's the armor sets: New Moon front bar, Clever Alchemist back bar, and Agility front bar. Running it with Malekith. 5 medium, 2 heavy. We're running the Warrior Mundus stone on this, and let's see if we can show that. Running the Warrior Mundus stone. We are down in CP Imperial City, and for this build, the 7k weapon damage build, we're going to run Artaeum Takeaway Broth. I do need my stamina recovery to be somewhat respectable to be active on this build. It's awesome having 7k weapon damage, no joke about that, but if you don't have enough gas in the tank to do anything with it, that's a problem. And so Artaeum, the expensive food, was definitely the way to go to get this to a respectable level. Now if you're a DK user and you are used to running less stamina recovery from this is going to be a nice pleasant gift for you. And if you are somebody that is accustomed to running 2,000 stamina recovery or more, this build probably is not going to be for you, or you're going to have to make some major changes to it. Switch Warrior over to the Serpent and change some weapon damage glyphs over to, bump it down from 7k weapon down to 6k weapon damage, and you're still going to be dangerous by adding some just stamina recovery glyphs. So anyways, we looked at the stats. Like I said, 7k weapon damage Hulk Smash build, and I'm going to show you some clips here of how the Stone Giant works if you haven't already seen that, and then you can also see how the Stomp and the Throw works for that. And other than that, let's jump into CP for this version of Hulk Smash, and we're gonna move on. Champion points for Hulk Smash, 7K weapon damage build. 56 points into Blessed, 12%, that gives us 12% more healing received. That's pretty nice. 20 points into Physical Weapon Expert, that helps our heavy attacks hit harder. Mastered Arms, we got 66 points in there, so all the direct damage attacks that we do hit for 22% harder. 64 points into Piercing, so that way we have more pen on this build. 64 points into Mighty. I don't currently have any points into Precise Strikes because we've got Malakath's Band on here. We're not going to benefit from the critical damage or increased critical damage done on this. We would only benefit from the critical healing, and so I'll kind of play around with that and see if we do need to move some points to that, so that way we have more crit heals coming in. A little up in the air on that right now. 77 points into medium armor focus. It gives us an extra 5k physical resistances. This was needed on this build for me. If you're used to running 20,000 resistances on your DK builds, then awesome. I'm not. So 47 points into spell resistance. That's going to give us an extra 3,800 spell resistance. 56 points into Ironclad. 15 points in Hardy, 15 points in Elemental Defender, so we get the Bulwark passive when we are on our back bar. When we're on our back bar, we get an extra 1,500, so we're on our Sword and Board bar, and that's the bar that we're kind of tooling around or moving around the battlegrounds or in Imperial City. We'll have an extra 1,500 resistances coming in. If you haven't seen any of my videos and you see why I don't put at least 120 points into this, get the Unchained passive, there's a rhyme or reason to it, especially right now. But the long and short of it is I'd rather have higher resistances with slightly less percentage of damage mitigated. Because somebody hits you with a Pierce armor right now, it will strip almost 9k of your resistances. And I don't care that you got an extra 4% damage mitigated. If you've only got 1,500 resistances, that 4% is not going to do you anything, okay? But if you've got an extra 5k resistances and someone hits you for that 9k, now you're actually only 4k less than, the difference there. And so I'm still getting some damage mitigated percentages, but not much. It's not going to be 4% or whatever, or it's going to be 4% less. They're getting an extra 4% if they dump more points into this because of how the scaling works on that. So for me, I like to push max resistances because I know that I'm going to be debuffed with major breach, and probably minor breach too. And so I don't want to be someone that has small resistances but a little bit extra damage percentage mitigated. I need the max stats, please. Quick recovery, 60 points into that. There is some wasted points here, but it doesn't really matter. You basically want to get your points to right to a round number. You can see we're at 12.5, and just get that a little over 12% if you can, but I had some extra points and so it ended up here. But our healing is increased by 12%. 1 point in the Siphoner, it gives them one extra thing to cleanse, and then 40 points into Warlord. 64 points into Mooncalf, 64 points in Arcanist. This is very important. I can tell you that on this build, the total magicka that we have for the class is just enough to get our buffs up for one round. And then as the fight is going on, there are going to be times where we need this. If it weren't for this, we would not get the magicka back in the tank to reapply our buffs. So this is going to be a must-have. And then 64 points into health recovery. That's going to help us offset some of the damage passively. And 37 points into tumbling. So that's CP for this. Is 7k weapon damage Hulk Smash build. And we're running New Moon front bar with Agility front bar and Malakath, and then back bar and Clever Alchemist. 5 medium, 2 heavy, Warrior Munda Stone, and Artaeum Takeaway Broth. It's a lot of damage. Anyways, we're gonna meet you right back here, and we're going to look at the proc set Hulk Smash build. Thanks. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to go over our second Hulk Smash build, and this one is the proc set setup for Hulk Smash, and we're still able to hit a respectable 5200, 5300 weapon damage. You could definitely hit more than that. I'd say 6k is probably not out of the realm of possible on this, but you'd really have to change a couple things. Anyways, I like where this setup is at, and out of all of them, out of all three setups, this one is relying on a proc set that is very interesting. So let's jump right into it. First set that we are running, this is a front bar back bar setup, and we're running with 7th Legion, and we're going to be running with 7th Legion. This is a 7 heavy armor setup, okay, and we are going to be running 7th Legion on the back bar with the chest and legs, and you can see that they're prismatic enchants and impenetrable. And then when we switch to our back bar there, it completes the set. Now the important thing to note about 7th Legion is when you cast an ability that increases your physical or spell resistance, you gain that weapon damage and health recovery for 15 seconds. You cannot re-trigger this. Let's say while this needs to run its entire duration, the full 15 seconds, and it needs to drop off before you can re-trigger it. Okay, you can't reapply the buff while it's still going. It doesn't work that way, so that's important to know. Also, this means that on your back bar you're going to need your armor buff, and so that's what we did. We moved our armor buff to the back bar, and this is probably a better setup for us. We're going to keep that one. We explained how the back bar works in the first build for Hulk Smash and how we initiate and travel around, but ultimately as soon as we trigger this, and it's got a cool visual effect too if you've never used it before, boom, you got these flames that come around you, and that's pretty cool. And every time you hit your armor buff you have to say boom. So anyways, 7th armor back bar setup. Front bar setup, we're doing the same thing, agility front bar setup. So when we switch to our front bar, we're going to get that 201 weapon damage, the additional stamina, which is very important for this build, and we are running Pale Order on this one. Now if you want to run Malakath, you can. However, Pale Order kind of scales really interesting with this build and the amount of AoE damage that we have going out, and so Pale Order is just amplifying the amount of heals that come in from this. Now the next armor set that we are running is arguably the best armor set right now in the game, and Is There No One Else just released a build video where he was using this on a DK too, so it was kind of cool that they, you know what they say, great minds think alike, and he's a great mind, and I hope to think alike someday. But anyways, Crimson is probably one of the best sets in the game right now. It's giving you a guaranteed 10, and that damage scales up if you were to use Malakath, but it's giving you a guaranteed 10k damage, burst damage to NPCs. It's going to be hitting player characters for 4 to 5k after 2 seconds. Okay, so it's got a 8-second delay on it, and then it's going to charge up and then explode. Okay, so basically every 10 seconds you have a 4k to 5k guaranteed damage going out to players, and it's going to heal you for 100% of the damage. So when you are fighting outnumbered with this armor set, not only is it guaranteed or reliable damage, it's guaranteed and reliable heals. So this is, I would imagine that this set is at some point going to be buffed, or nerfed, sorry, and probably buffed. It'll be nerfed. But for now, this is a really, really cool set if you know how to use it. And so we are running Crimson. Not all my armor pieces, because I just farmed this. You can see I got a hodgepodge of a bunch of random pieces. Invigorating, arguably the best trait in the game, right? I'm being sarcastic, but Crimson front piece, and you can see front armor set, and you can see that Crimson's also heavy armor, so that's what leads us to 7 heavy. We've got the Crimson, which is all heavy, and then our 7th Legion is a heavy armor setup also. But the way this scales, or the way this works with Pale Order, is very interesting. It just kind of amplifies the heals that are going out and coming in, and so For a 5K 5300 weapon damage build that just has a guaranteed damage going out and guaranteed heals coming in, and then like I said on the first build, the Hulk smash is basically a rampaging bull in a China store. Almost everything he does is AoE damage and just destruction, and so attaching Pale Order to that is kind of cool. The amount of heals and durability that you have from it. Also, this setup is a little bit more tanky because of the health recovery that we have coming in. I think it gets up to 1800 2K. We'll have to look at the screenshot. I am going to share a couple screenshots with you of the build when it's buffed up, and you can see the 5300 weapon damage, and then you'll also be able to see the tooltips for some of the abilities at the 5300 weapon damage. And so it's pretty respectable and it gets the job done, and this set is overperforming like you would not believe. So if you haven't tried it yet, get out there and PvP, farm this set, and then go PvP with it and watch it do work for you. So that is the armor setup for it, and buff stats, we talk about that. Tooltips, you will see that in the screenshots, and the Pale Order, how that synergizes with the abilities. Same abilities as the first build, we just had to move a couple things around, but watch the first build video if you want to hear the breakdown on Stone Giant and why I like that right now as opposed to D-Swing, and how that works or how it functions. But the stomp on this is really impressive, and the fact that Pale Order heals you for the damage done. And so between our Draw Essence, our Stomp, our Leaps, and Crimson going off, like this build is just very impressive. The only thing, obviously, where it is lacking is absolutely in the stamina recovery field. So if you want to change your food, come a little bit off of max stat and a little bit off health recovery, and go with Artaeum Takeaway, you'll get an extra 300 there. You could also come off of the Warrior Mundus Stone and go with the Serpent, and the Serpent Mundus Stone will give you another 300. So we could get this back up to a respectable level. We're just going to come off health recovery and doing that in a little bit of max health, which we could afford to do. I like the health where we're at on this build better than the first one, because we were pushing the 7K weapon damage on the first build, but the health took a hit on it. And so those are some changes that you can make to it. Also, because we are in 7 heavy right now, when you look at the stats on this, on our back bar here, sword and board bar, you know, we're over cap and right at cap for when we're just moving around. And then you can see our crit resistance is on the low, and that's because of the random traits on the Crimson stuff that we're not going to switch just yet. Also, you'll get a little bit more stats if you were to gold out your Crimson. I didn't gold out any of the Crimson. Same way on the first build I didn't gold out my New Moon. So it's very costly to put builds together and test things, let me tell you. So let's jump into the CP, and this play is very similar to the first build, almost identical. You just get a different result from it because of the damage output going from Crimson and the heals coming in from Pale Order. It feels very different than the first build. So you might have 7K weapon damage on the first build, but with the guaranteed damage from Crimson on this and heals, you definitely feel more tanky. Plus we're 7 heavy armor on this one. But CP, let's look at that. Same, almost identical CP, except for one minor change. We got 56 points into Blessed for more healing, 20 points into Physical Weapon Expert, 66 points into Mastered Arms, 64 points into Piercing, 64 points into Mighty. And you could put points into, because we can do critical damage while we're running Pale Order, and so that would be something to entertain, is do we want to do some actual critical damage, and do we want to buff some critical heals? We have all this heals coming in, you know. Can we get some crit heals coming in from our vigors and stuff? But anyways, if you wanted to move some things around, you probably could. We just kept that part the same. Ironclad, we've got 56, 47 points into Spell Shield. We moved our points in medium armor focus over to heavy armor focus, because we are running 7 heavy, and that was the one change we made to CP. 60 points into quick recovery. We do have a couple points lost there, but it was a point dump. And 15 points in hardy, 15 points in elemental defender, so we get the bulwark passive. And when we're on our sword board, that's what puts us at the resistance caps. So also in the first build, CP, I explain why I do this setup with max stat resistances as opposed to hitting Unchained passive. You can watch that portion of it to figure it out why, but basically I just want to run around with max stat resistances as opposed to you know, trying to push an extra 4% damage mitigated but having, you know, much less resistances. So, and 1 point into Siphoner, 40 points into Warlord, 64 points into Mooncalf, 64 points into Arcanist. This is very important. Stamina DKs are very heavy Magicka based. And if you do not have these points in here, it's going to be very hard to maintain your buffs and to fight actively with this build. 64 points into healthy and 37 points into tumbling. So that's CP for that second build. Again, it is a front bar back bar setup. On the back bar we're running 7th Legion, gives you some weapon damage, some health recovery, and then on the front bar we are running Crimson and Agility. And the way this whole thing just kind of synergizes feels really well. Make some changes. This is very scary stamina recovery. If you're not used to heavy attacking and things like that, I would definitely switch from the Warrior to the Serpent, and I would also change the food from Sugar Skulls to Artaeum. And with those two changes, you will get this up and over the 1K mark, and it'll be a little bit more palatable to some people. So there is that build, everybody. Crimson, 7th Legion, and Agility. You're using Pale Order. If you don't like Pale Order and you want to run Malakath, by all means, you do you. So, thanks. Alright everybody, welcome back. Now we're going to cover the very last build for this video, and it's going to be a almost 7600 health recovery Hulk Smash build. And this would be the tank version, I guess, for Imperial City or BGs if you just wanted to be real stubborn and hard to kill. You'll kill the bad players with this build and the weapon damage just because they usually don't buff or anything, but mid-level, you might occasionally get a mid-level player as well, but most mid-level players will recognize that they're not going to ever kill you, and they move on. And the really good players might burst on you, but in a 1v1 situation, if they're one of the best players, they won't kill you on this build with 7600 health recovery. And the reason being is 7600 health recovery is coming in every 2 seconds. And probably the only way they'd kill you is if you just stood there and did nothing, and they would need to out damage the 7600 health recovery that's coming in every 2 seconds. And that's going to require lining up their burst very well to do that. So if you give any type of fight back, and hold block, even just hold block, they're not going to kill you. So that's the thing. I wouldn't say it's unkillable. You could be jumped by a handful of people, and it's going to take a group effort. I did have a friend of mine, Crocs, he was running around on this build too, and he confirmed it worked the same way for him, that every time he ran into a 1v1 situation, if it was somebody he couldn't put away, they just ended up running off. They realized that they weren't going to be able to kill him, and they just took off. And so he kind of chased him for a little bit and then let him go. But pretty funny, and I guess ultimately that's the reaction we're looking for from this build. So let's jump in. Very first set that we are running on this Hulk Smash build is going to be Beekeeper, and you can see it's just a whole bunch of health, and then the last line is 900 additional health recovery. I'm running an Impen on some of the armor pieces, and I'm running Reinforced on some of the others. That way we hit our resistance caps, and we are running multi enchant effects on most everything. So we're running Beekeeper. and then we are running Alessian. And Alessian, you can see it's armor, max health, and then increase your health recovery by 2% for the sum of total physical and spell resistances. So this will get up to about 1400, 1500 health recovery when we fully buff up. Let's actually look at that and see here. Yeah, 1523, and I believe we are at 7600 health recovery. Yeah, so a little over 7600 health recovery. See, our resistance is 39k and 37k, and we are over cap, so that's good considering if somebody hits us with a pierce, it's going to strip 9k of our resistances immediately. And so we need to be thinking about over capping on your resistances if you're running into that situation regularly. And for some people, they're running around with what would be respectable, like 26, 27k on a medium armor build. You know, they got 6k weapon damage, 26k resistances. Someone hits them with a pierce armor, they lose 9k of that. You know, they're now running around with basically light armor on. And so something to take under consideration right now. And anyways, our just static health recovery on this, I think, is going to be about the 5600 health recovery. And you can see that jump that we take is pretty significant when we pop a potion. That's 40% additional health recovery. It takes us up really high. Now, we are running the Steed currently, and that gives us additional movement speed and some extra health recovery. And we're running Bewitched Sugar Skulls, which is max stat and additional health recovery. Here's the thing about it. There is a middle ground on this build. I am running infused with health recovery on 2 of these pieces, and then I'm not going to spin transmute crystals on this yet, or otherwise I would infuse. And if I infuse this, I think that would probably take us up another 100 health recovery. You know, not really worth it. Might end up being an extra 150 health recovery. So a 7,700 health recovery build, 7,800 health recovery build. Awesome. That's important to note. We are running Armor of the Trainee. We're hitting the 1 piece bonus for that extra health there. It is Prismatic Enchant for that, and then Armor of the Trainee comes in training unless you can find it otherwise, and I'm not going to spend Transmute Crystal to change that just yet. We have so many things that we need to spend Transmute Crystals on, and we're just not going to do it. You can see that different armor pieces are reinforced and some are actually impen, so our crit resistance is on the low. Like you can see, it's 1571 crit resistance. So the 1571 is a lower crit resistance, but we're getting our resistance caps, and with the health recovery, we just we're super tanky, and we feel it. So, and a long time ago, somebody said health recovery does not make you feel more tanky, and that is not correct. It does. If passively every 2 seconds you've got 7,600 health coming in, and that's going to make you feel tanky. You know, somebody's trying to damage you, they're going to have to outrun that health recovery. It's passively taking care of damage for you, right? The incoming damage. Same way resistances do. Their resistances are actively or passively taking offsetting incoming damage. And so running a very high health recovery build is very dangerous. Now, I did actually run a version of this. It was one of my highest viewed videos. It's called the Anthras 2.0 Health Regen Tank build. This build currently, because of the changes that have been in the game since then, we're able to push probably 2k more health recovery on this build right now than I could on the Anthras build 2.0. So this is probably the new meta for health regen type tanks for PvP. If you don't want to get killed in a 1v1 or 2v1 in some cases, or even 3v1 in some cases, this is the build for you. So if I were running around on this and I ran into a PvE guild, they might very well not be able to tank me. I'd just face tank them in front of everyone. Another thing too, we are running Pale Order on this, and it's not that the tooltips for our damage, you can see our weapon damage only gets up to 2300, and I got a weapon damage glyph, so it'll be a 2500 weapon damage. So the tooltips on the individual abilities aren't anything to write home about. But the fact that it's an AoE, 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 this single target pressure, but I use these I use this to debuff the targets and then apply dot pressure to the targets. Here's my hard CC. But the fact that you could sneaky like kill some people by hitting corrosive armor, and in that moment your abilities ignore enemy physical resistances. And so your mid-level players to low-level players you'll be able to kill on this build. A high-level player recognizes you hit corrosive armor. He'll also notice that your health is super high, and he tries doing damage to you, and he'll notice real quickly that he's not going to get anywhere with it, and most really good players will move on. They're not going to stand there for 10 minutes banging on this build trying to kill it. It's just not going to happen. So anyways, you will sneaky like kill mid-level to low-level players on the build. It's a lot of fun. Let's jump into so Pale Order. Anyways, because it's all AoE damage, we got a lot of AoE damage going out, and in turn we got a lot of healing coming in, and that just adds to the fact that it's got 7600 health recovery. So just in the process of us doing our basic damaging rotation and stuff, we've just got these heals coming in, and it probably equates to, if you were to take our health recovery and then add on top of it all the additional heals that are coming in, it's a lot to overcome. It really is, especially single target. It just won't happen. But that's a lot of fun considering how we play this build. Let's look at CP here. CP is going to be very similar to the very last CP for the last build that we did. It was a heavy armor setup too, but we'll jump in and look at it just in case you skipped past that. 56 points into Blessed, 20 points into Physical Weapon Expert, 66 points into Master at Arms, 64 points into Piercing, 64 points into Mighty, and we talked about it before, but I might, because we're not running Malakat's Band, I might want to put some points into this for additional crit damage and critical heals, but we're still up in the air on that. 56 points into Ironclad, 47 points into Spell Shield, and 15 points into Hardy, 15 points into Elemental Defender, so we get the Bulwark passive. That makes us real tanky on our Sword and Board back bar as we're buffing. 60 points into Quick Recovery. There are a couple points lost here, but it was kind of a point dump for us. You basically only need to hit the 12% and you're good. And then 77 points in Heavy Armor Focus. And I explained it in all three of the other builds. I'm sorry if you've I'm sorry and also thankful if you've watched the entire video here. Thank you very much for that. But for some people that fast forward, I like to have max stat resistances with an extra 4K of physical resistances, as opposed to dumping really heavy in this, hitting 8% resistances or 12% resistances, but not having these points here or in Spell Shield. And in that moment we were talking about, I might be at a 27,000 resistance setup. I might be at 27,000 resistances, but as soon as somebody hits me with Pierce, Major Breach, now all of a sudden I've got 9k resistances out of my 27 missing, and you know that now I'm walking around at 18k resistances. And so who cares if I have 12% damage mitigation, but I only have 18% total spell and physical resistance. I'm basically wearing light armor, right? And so they're gonna hit me really hard. So I'd rather just max out my numbers. Now also, this makes a lot of sense when you're using Alessian, okay? Because when you read the Alessian 5-piece, increase your health recovery by 2% of your sum of total physical and spell resistances. So the higher your physical and spell resistances, the higher your health recovery is going to be. That's important. Also, another thing too is Nord's probably, because of that, Nord's probably the better race to go. However, you can't make a green Nord, right? Or I actually would have for Hulk Smash. I would have made a Nord. But anyways, here we are as an Orc and Hulk Smash. But if you were a Nord, you'd get an extra 4K resistances on top of that. So your health recovery, you probably hit 8K or 9K health recovery on this build. Who knows? So, anyways, that's my health recovery build for Hulk Smash. And if you've waited this long, I thank you so much. I do have one other build for you, which will be bonus content, and I'll have to do in another video for you if you're interested. But if you waited here this long and you're interested in seeing what a middle of the road, like recovery based battleground build for Hulk Smash would be, like a build that I would take into battlegrounds and feel very good about because of my personal play style, just put in the comments below, like, hey, what's the BG build for Hulk Smash that you were talking about at the end? And if I get enough people that are interested in seeing that, then I'll do another build on Hulk Smash with another yet another Hulk Smash build for you. So that's everything. Be safe out there, everybody. 3 builds. Here it is, Hulk Smash. Thanks.